Wow. The Beast Within was a terrible dog pile of werewolf movie, but
don't be scared. I am a monster.
So I just recently watched The Beast Within that was released a few months ago if I remember, and I just gotta say, wow. I'll put the synopsis up on the screen if you'd like to read it, but basically The Beast Within is about a child who becomes suspicious of her parents as they exhibit odd behaviors, disappearing into the woods once a month and returning with torn and bloody clothing. That's the general plot as it was marketed. Now, for a non-spoiler, do I think it's worth watching? That depends. If you don't mind being misled and baited into thinking this actually belongs in the horror genre and you're the type of person who enjoys the film for the moments even if things do go complete downward in the later half, then by all means go ahead and brace yourself because I honestly think you'll be disappointed especially the revelation and the finale. But otherwise, no, I would not waste an hour and a half of your time on this film. Personally, you're better off going out for a run on a cold night or something. Now, with that aside, moving forward, I may be discussing spoilers, so keep that in mind. You have been warned. For the past few years, I think I've been disappointed, like constantly, with these monster-themed horror films, especially one revolving around werewolves, because I'm actually a big fan of horror, and when it comes to like mythological creatures, I think lycans are one of the best creatures in mythologies to center a story around because of the duality between human or civilizations and animal instinct. But that's honestly just the start of it. There's certainly a great mystery potential with werewolves, I think, especially if you isolate the whole instant in, let's say, a village or a town. It sort of becomes a perfect playground for mystery and suspense, tensions. I mean, you have like perfect recipe for horror right there. The uncertainty and paranoia, I think, creates like an incredible atmosphere if you keep things simple and concise. Lycan stories on a page work well because they tap into primal fears. But these stories, at least on the big screen, I gotta say, they've been taking L's for the past decade or two. In fact, it is quite difficult to even come up with a definitive film on top of my head. The last time I can remember witnessing a good lycanthrope story was in Dragon Age Origins, which wasn't even a film, so there's that. But I love the Brazilian forest chapter in Origins. Finding out who inhabited the forest, gradually discovering who was behind the curse. It was overall just a great storytelling. I really have no complaint. And keep in mind, Origins, despite being a game, even then it came out in 2009, so it was like that was recent. Now, is The Beast Within a bad movie? I wouldn't say it's a bad movie necessarily, but it's certainly a bad werewolf film again because guess what? The movie seems to have nothing to do with the mythology of lycanthrope itself, but rather it used the term as metaphor for domestic abuse. I'm thinking abusive relationship within the family appears to be what the film was trying to convey to the audience. In fact, towards the end of the film, the movie even implies that the whole werewolf concept was nothing but a fabrication of the little girl imagination, who also happens to be the eye through which the audience experiences the majority of the events that transpire in the film. This is a problem because if you actually watch the trailer or even look at the poster, and it even says horror in the genre section, it is very much giving off a werewolf story. And I say werewolf instead of, let's say, traditional werewolf because what in the actual F does a werewolf have anything to do with domestic abuse or metaphors or abusive relationship? It's a goddamn mythological creature with a curse that allows a person to turn into a half-man, half-wolf during a full moon or a night. They need to stop using these bait and switch tactics, and they need to stop bastardizing gothic horror. I'm sick and tired of metaphors and riddles. Clearly, they seem to want to use werewolf as a gimmick to get people to tune in, and that's just dishonest. Like seriously, this is getting out of hands. We got films for werewolf cops, strippers, cocaine werewolf, and I heard of a teen wolf as well. This is a travesty. If I had the Infinity Stones, I would snap by a good 95% or more of all these iterations away like not even dust but nothingness. Like they never even existed in the first place because now you got people thinking they can use these mythological creatures as metaphors or symbolism when it is clear, like at least in terms of their presence, they were supposed to be real physical imitation, not in the real world obviously, but in fiction, of horror and dark magic. As far as the movie goes outside of the werewolf element, is it any good? It is a weird case because the majority of the movie was built around the premise that there is a werewolf curse which could be used to explain a lot of the things that have occurred, such as our culprit or the husband being taken to an old ruin of a castle and being chained up, and they even left a livestock animal for him to feed on seemingly. And this happens, I believe, about once a month. The wife washing the blood off his coat. How else would you explain any of this if he didn't have a curse or he was transforming into some creature at night? Now, you could maybe stretch far out of logic and say it's a way for him to vent out his anger, or this may be more symbolic than literal. But what good is a film if everything you see is a bunch of metaphors, like all the time? It's a visual form of entertainment, like come on. And I'm being pretty nice here because it really comes off as a complete waste of time by the end of the film once you discover what the reveal is. It also doesn't make sense when you consider the fact that the grandfather was present throughout the entire film and he himself was acting as if there was an actual otherworldly presence or factor in play rather than just someone who has a violent impulse. So when all the mystery and stakes revolve around the premise that there is some type of lichen curse or something funny is going on at night, it will inevitably disappoint you at the end. I think the actors are pretty good. The actual scenes that play out are entertaining enough, somewhat to stick around given you don't know anything about the film, but now that you've seen this video up until here, I just spoiled the whole plot twist. I don't see you getting any enjoyment out of this if I'm being honest. Looking back, you can spot some of the instances where the abuse and traumatic experiences may have taken place, but the film does it subtly. Based on what unfolded, the film kind of portrays the father as the sole abuser while his daughter and wife were the victims. However, once you've seen the film, that isn't really accurate entirely. While the wife is a victim in this scenario, she's also complicit in this abusive family dynamic, especially in regards to her daughter, because she knowingly and actively keeps her kid around despite knowing how violent her husband can get. There's a part in the film when her dad, who is well aware of their family situation by the way, was trying to take their daughter away from their reclusive home because, it wasn't really safe and things were, becoming really suspicious. And both parents were really adamant about having her stay, so much to the point that they physically stopped him and the child only to bring her back to their home. It's an interesting dynamic. It's an interesting film, but again, a lot of its value even on the atmosphere and tensions are thrown right off the window towards the finale. The reason is, once again, due to a lot of the anxiety and stakes across the first and the second act were on the premise that there was an actual werewolf curse present. And so once you find out that all of it may have just been a psychological manifestation from the perspective of the little girl or their daughter, it loses a lot of its appeal and it definitely came out cheap and misleading. I genuinely don't think this movie is going to hold up on a rewatch. Speaking of the finale, there is another major issue we got to talk about, and that is the way the werewolf look. And I don't know where in the hellhole they pick up that design from. Granted, I could say the same for a large portion of the other variations in other medias, but geez, this thing looks like a washed up stray dog. It's way too ordinary looking without a sense of menace or invoking fear. It has no size. It's like if you look at it, he's like the same height as her. It just looks poorly chosen. There are so many designs for lichens that are well established. One of the better examples I can think of is the design from Van Helsing, which by the way, let me know in the comments if you would like a video for that film. But Van Helsing definitely nailed the appearance of a lichen. It's fast, massive, it has a good muscular build, and it resembles a primal wolf but able to stand on two legs, which is what a werewolf is. Now on the other hand, we got one from the Wolfman that looks like a caveman who hasn't shaved in ages, or the werewolves from the Underworld franchise that share stark similarities with a sewer rat. I don't think it's all that difficult to pick apart a good design from bad, so I'm kind of confused as to why so many films keep making these creatures just look goofy. I don't understand how you pick that out of hundreds, even potentially even thousands that are out there. Overall, The Beast Within, while the first half was pretty good if you didn't know the plot twist, but we already know what it is. But the second half of the movie pretty much pulled the bait and switch, and that was really not warranted. Anyway, let me know if you've seen The Beast Within and what are your thoughts about it in the comments, or what is your favorite mythological horror. If you have any good recommendation for a Halloween film, drop it in the comments as well. I appreciate you subscribe and hit the like, and I will catch you soon.